Hello and welcome to this recording, which introduces you to Art 31, which is our sculpture class. It is a delight to be able to be working with you in this class because we haven't had a sculpture class for a bit of a time, and I personally started my artistic world as a sculptor, and I'm never too far in my thoughts and creative works from that origin story. So we're going to be able to explore our expressive capacity in 3 dimensions together, and I'm really happy to be doing that with you. This video is just to throw a few ideas out there and to point out you're sitting right now looking at this on the Canvas page for your class. And the Canvas page will give you some ideas and some suggestions. For instance, it will ask you to do a profile, to put in some kind of portrait of yourself and to describe a few things about yourself. And that's a way for everybody to get to know you, and also for a way for me to know that you're going to be staying in the class. So that's something that we will do on this Canvas platform. The other thing that the Canvas platform will do for you is I will post helpful information, things that we talk about in class. Perhaps when I do a PowerPoint on some topic, I will put it up in the Canvas so that you can revisit it and consider it yourselves if you want to look at the ideas a little bit further. So that's what we're going to do with this Canvas. The other thing that we'll do is we do have a book we're reading, I believe Steal Like an Artist, and there'll be some exercise, some kind of place for you to put in a few pages of comments about the book a little later on, much later on in the class, actually. But what we're going to do in this class is we're going to explore a couple of different ways of working with sculpture, more than a couple. We'll be working in mixed media techniques, which means basically any object anywhere can become something for sculpture. Couple of different orientations to that. One is assemblage, which I'll be talking about, and another is what I call language of materials, which allows you to make really significant sculpture out of really insignificant materials. And we'll talk more about that. Another material that we'll be using quite a bit is clay, both because I have a lot of experience for you in that, and also because it's a really powerful mode of expression. So let's look at a few things to start off with, just to give ourselves some starting kind of concepts. Let's look at mixed media to start with. So here's a little kind of starter maquette type piece here, and it's got a little bit of clay in it. This little object on the top, a hand holding a head, is a little piece I did in an exercise one time. But as you can see, it's quite a tall piece. And as you start to explore what's going on here, this is a rather large lock washer on the bottom, which adds both stability and visual interest. And then it goes from there into a piece of furniture, like a table leg of some kind. And then there's a broken pipe, which has been spread, and it's kind of a beautiful kind of rusted collar that goes around a sleeve that goes around the wooden table leg. And then this archaic red and yellow rusted little box here, which says on it Kodak. And some of you may not remember this, but Kodak was the main company in America for film products and for photo processing. And I found this old rusted canister on a walk through a field. And again, most of the material that you can use is readily available and sort of garbage around you everywhere you look. So we'll be getting into that quite a bit, looking into what we can do. So here's one. Let's look at a few more. This is another piece of mine, which is, you'll see this in some video presentations that I'll provide, or PowerPoints. This piece is it's a little taller than you can see there. There's a dangling component there that I consider sort of a metaphor of Plum Bob, which I find is a truing mechanism. That's a reoccurring symbol in my work these days. I find some sense of solace and security in the Plum Bob metaphor, because the Plum Bob always points to the point immediately below where it's attached. This is a kind of a principle of physics that's immutable, and I like the idea that truth can be immutable. Especially these days. So here, what we have is a little composition, and one of the things you'll notice is that I'm not working hard for meaning. Even the Plum Bob concept, that might occur to you at some point after a while of looking at it, but it may not be present to you. And all of these things here are primarily placed for visual effect, and it's a little hard with my hands in the way, but this normally hangs on a wall. But you can see there are some kind of visual qualities if you start playing with 3D design. There's this central sphere here, and it's echoed by these 3 spherical stone balls at the top. And so you've got that round, and then the round is again echoed by the punch outs on this piece of stainless steel down here, right? So you have that going on. You have this piece going across the top is another piece of furniture material here. It has some old wooden joints in it that you can see, and it's kind of abused and marred by time. So I like those kind of textures and qualities. The background piece here used to be a bracket that was curved and was bolted to a wall, and a hose hung on it. And I took that, flattened it, and you started with that. And then I began to layer. Layering is a very powerful technique. And I find when I can use things like these screens, like here is some expanded steel, this diamond shape expanded steel. And I have this, this piece of perforated stainless steel here. As I play with those, they become, they add shading, because I can still see this piece behind both of them if I look. And so it's adding a design element and a line and even a shape here. It's very much like painting. This becomes a sort of geometric painting in a way. So that's what I'm doing with these. I'm arranging pieces to find some sort of dynamic and visually compelling composition. And that's a really good way of working that I highly recommend, rather than rushing out towards trying to say something right away. Now, there are some things of meaning here, which are maybe not clearly dogmatically stated, but worth contemplation. For instance, these 3 things here are their ammunition, their little slingshot stones that were used by the indigenous peoples who lived around Clear Lake, just north of us, and they used them to hunt waterfowl. So that's what we have here. And so, you know, starting to think about that. Then this is lead, which is often used for the way we hunt or go fishing. It's a kind of a weight for fishing, but it's also very toxic to the environment that we use it in. So that might also be some kind of area of contemplation, along with the visual qualities. And of course, we have our Plum Bob. So that's one piece. I'll show you another piece from that Plum Bob series. And then maybe we'll move on to some ceramic sculpture. And here is another piece that I've done. And you'll see some repeating things. Of course, the Plum Bob is quite obvious. There's another Plum Bob, and I make these out of ceramic. But I'm thinking maybe soon I'll start using actual Plum Bobs. I'm kind of building up a collection of those, and it might be interesting to use those. So what we have here is the full piece. You can see right here is, again, another repeated concept here is this. This is another one of those brackets used to hold hoses up. I like the linear quality of them, so they make a fine background. And then this piece of metal is a part that is attached to a steel post that is used for nailing into the ground or hammering into the ground for fences and such. On the top here, we have pieces of furniture. These are old elements of again, this I think is a chair leg, this yellow kind of flaky thing, and then some piece of plumbing up here, a little spigot. And then from the bottom is the Plum Bob. Now, as we look at this, there's some writing on the fence post part that needs to be explained. And then, of course, there's this gloriously kind of Victorian angel figure, which is a common kind of cliche in sculpture. The woman with her arms up in a gesture of welcome, scantily clad and usually fairly thin. This is a sort of a trope or a cliche in sculpture that I found for almost nothing in a thrift shop. And then everything else on here I found literally for nothing. So again, this is not an expensive way of working. As we zoom in on that rather offensive writing on there, you can see lots of things that are on there. The way this came about is I was doing a collaborative project with an English class, and I and my students gave pieces of metal to poets. Who would ever do that? To some poets in this creative writing class. And I was working with the professor, Michael Wiley, and the idea was they would write on them and then we would try to incorporate them into assemblage. And I got this piece from Michael Wiley, and he said, this is what the current president says about my daughter. And you can see these statements are things like whore, bitch, cunt, emotional, bleeding, slut, soft, pig, fat, slob. And these were all hashtags, and these were all statements that our former president used to refer to women. And Michael Wiley, being the father of now 2 daughters, was rather incensed by this idea, and he wrote these all down and handed them to me. And so this piece I titled "The White House Speaks of My Daughter." So it's this one, unlike the last one, this one has a little bit more in-your-face kind of content rather than the last one, which is more subtle and keeps to the visual. I think this one is also very visually intriguing, but it has a little bit more in-face kind of content. Now I'm going to turn this around a bit to show you a few things in my home. But this is I brought this in. This is an abstract ceramic sculpture, and I'm going from the side here. I'll move it around a little bit. I know this is fabulous filming technique here, and it's a really intriguing, I think, I'll pick it up and show it to you. There's the top, quite textured. It's an abstract form. Let's see if I can pick it up and show you what it looks like on the bottom. It's quite heavy. There's the bottom. So as you're looking at it from the side, you can see all these kind of landscapes of these profiles from underneath. Most of the action is underneath, with the exception all this top is quite textured and kind of exciting as well. So, and I may make something like that to show you how that's done, because our first project is kind of along those lines. Let me show you a few other things here. There's some sculptures up here. This piece right here is called the Buffalo Pointer, and it was by a professor of mine. Again, an abstract piece, not really clear in meaning, but very provocative and intriguing. It's mixed media, so the central piece, let's see if I can get over here. Yeah, you can see that big wheel is made out of clay. And full disclosure here, this piece, I had this in my home for about 12 years. My daughter accidentally knocked it off a shelf and broke the wheel, so I had to rebuild the wheel recently. But I did actually rebuild his signature as well, since he's no longer with us. He passed. I was able to recreate the wheel and put the piece back together. So I'm really happy to have this again. It's a very provocative piece. I like the sense that there is some symbolism, some meaning. The center piece, the pointer, is a carved, I think, walnut. And then the end of it is a piece of elk horn. So it's really quite elegant. And it's on a piece of light wood, maybe mahogany, I don't know. And then here is a ceramic figure, abstract by myself. And And I may make something along these lines to show you how I do that. This is a more, you can see these two actually are kind of intriguing together. You have an abstract figure by myself, and then next to it is a beautiful piece by Lisa Reinertsen, the great figurative sculptor known worldwide, and a lovely, beautiful piece of ceramic sculpture from the human figure. She works directly from a model. So the difference being that my piece is a work of imagination, where the figure is alluded to, whereas in Lisa's piece, it's quite literal, and it has an elegance and a grace brought on by her capacity to translate the figure. And then we get larger, you see that head floating in space. Well, it's actually part of this piece here, which is about, you can't quite see the whole thing. This is one of my figures from my Luminous series. This is called She Walks in Beauty. And it is made entirely out of clay. It's about just shy of 5 feet, maybe maybe 4'6" or something like that. So whatever the maximum capacity of the kiln is. So that's a little bit of a tour of some of the materials we might be working with. We'll be working with assemblage, and the language of materials is a completely different thing, which I'll introduce in class. We're going to have a great time together. We work on Fridays, and we will be working with 3 classes concurrently, and yours is the one that deals with ceramic sculpture and mixed media, and with the overall topic being, what is it to make 3D sculptural expression in the world, creative expression in 3 dimensions. Any material is available to you, any technique you want to employ. That's the topic of your class. The other class that will be taught simultaneously, due to reasons of enrollment, is ceramic sculpture, and they'll be working exclusively in clay. And then in between, there's a class in intermediate sculpture. These are for people who are repeating, and they can either do one or the other of these class designs, or they can work independently as artists using us as references or for consultation. That's what we're doing. We're going to have a fabulous semester together. I want to encourage you to find this as a home for your own creative expression, and a place to be safe and to be comfortable exploring anything and everything in your own creative realm. So until we see each other on Fridays, stay safe and make lots and lots of art.